Today I'm going to show you how to make a gumball machine or a candy machine, and I'll use a method that has worked for me, and there are probably a lot of other ways you can skin this cat. So the first thing I did is I ran some poplar through my bandsaw and I made 4¼ inch approximately squares, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. So now I'm going to take these 4-inch squares, and before I glue them together, I'm going to slide and cut a piece out of them. Now that I have these 4¼ inch squares, I'm going to rip 1½ inch cut on each side of this square. This piece will become trash, and we'll have our slider go in the center here. You can see now when I take my two 1½ inch pieces and put them on either side, I'm left with a gap that looks like it's like 1 3/8. So I'm going to take a longer piece of wood. This chunk is 8 3/4, and I'm going to go ahead and rip it, and it's going to make a slider to catch our candy that's going to go right in there. So we'll go to the bandsaw and make that cut now. I actually took the scrap between the two 1½ inch cuts, and I used that to make the width of the new shelf that I'm going to rip right now. Let's take it through and see what happens. Before I glue the gumball machine together, let's take a look at the dissected view. You can see I have my slider shelf here, and I put an X right in the middle here, and I put it in such a place where I can pinch this drawer with my index finger and thumb, and then watch what happens. If I hold this, a gumball will fall into a slot here. It will come out and drop out into your hand here, and still we're leaving enough space right here to put a stop so the wood won't pass all the way through. So notice again where I mark it so I have enough space to pinch and hold this, and enough distance so the gumball can drop out right here and still have a little bit of space to have a stop for the drawer. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue each of these pieces together. Notice these are shorter. I'm going to try to not be sloppy and get any overflow into that area, and then I'll glue all of these together, clamping it like this, and when everything is set pretty well, I'll slide this out and let the entire thing dry. Okay, ready for that glue up. I have glue on this surface, both of these smaller surfaces, and both of these surfaces. So it'll just come together like this, and like this, and like this, and like this, and this. So you can see this is nice and snug. I have my gap in here. It's a little tight. That's okay, because when everything's done I can sand this a little bit until it slides easily and even wax it a bit. The edges, there's a lot of moving surfaces here on a damp layer of glue. So when this settles and dries and gets good and hard tomorrow, I'll belt sand each side until that glue line disappears and it looks like a single piece of wood. So let's give it a rest now. See, I've got it down to a real flat surface on every side. This took a while to do. I have too fine of sandpaper on here, and it just was a lot of sanding. I think next time I'll make the cube a little bit bigger and just take my bandsaw and chop it to the side I need at the end. Now to get rid of these very sharp corners that will just dent, I'm just going to go around and do one of these numbers all the way around on every corner to just break that edge a little bit. So you can see I was able to turn a little walnut knob. You don't have to do this, but it kind of looks nice. If you can't do it, you can just put a pinch countersink right here, and that would work pretty well. And you can see the next thing I did is I drilled a hole. This is about a 1/4 inch hole, and I set this drawer pull not flush because I don't want my gumball to fall down all the time. So I set, when it's flush, I pull this about a half an inch out, and then I bored this hole down into the shelf so I can pull it out now, and you can see I have the hole there that is marked for me. And then I'll take and I'm going to put this 3/4 inch drill bit in, and I'm going to go down here. This is the area where the gumball will fall. Then I will go back and drill a chamber in here so the gumball can drop into this catch. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Now I'm set to drill the 3/4 inch hole most of the way through this drawer pull. I'm making sure that I've set my drill press not to penetrate through. Now I have flipped the drawer pull over, and I'm going to drill through the bottom so both holes will meet in the center. This will prevent any blowout on the back side. So you can see here that we have a 3/4 inch hole punched all the way through. So you can see now I can run a quick test. This is a mason jar lid that I will eventually tack down here to hold it in place. I can just take some of these marbles and drop them in here, and you can see how the marbles kind of fall into the hole. But then when I go to pull it, you'll see it jams. And I expected that because I've made many of these before. The problem is the balls fall down in a straight column, and when you pull this drawer, one of the balls is like being cut in half and it can't move any. So the way we rectify that is by doing the following. I'll remove the balls, get them out of the way, and drop them down like this. So what I'm going to do is take my chisel and a little wooden mallet that I made, and I'm just going to begin just chipping this away. And this is going to be the place where the ball can actually roll up a ramp. This is not a precise science. It's just going to be some experimentation. As I continue to chip this away, I'll test it until it works pretty smoothly, and then I'll just sand it to make it work really nicely. Okay. So now we'll give it a little test run. I'll hold the gumball machine, pull the drawer, and you can see there it's dropping one at a time. Once in a while it won't drop, and that's because these get a little bit stovepiped up here. So what I'm going to do to take care of that is I'm going to maybe router in there, or I might just again use my chisel to make a wooden funnel to funnel these in so they don't get caught there. I'm trying to create some kind of a catch and ramp for the gumballs as they drop. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm going to experiment by drilling a vertical hole this way, and on the same line a vertical hole this way, and then cutting this with a bandsaw like that, and therefore making a place where the ball can fall and kind of roll this way a little bit, or not even roll, just kind of settle there so you could scoop it out with your finger. This is just an experiment, so let's see what happens. Now notice in this setup I have a little wedge of wood here that kind of lifted one side of the block, so when I drill I no longer will have a horizontal hole, but one at a slight angle, so hopefully the gumball will roll down. So you can see now I have that tunnel of light that shows you kind of a little ramp that's inside there. Now let's see what we can do with that. Now I'm going to set up to make a second bandsaw cut, where I'm going to cut through the middle of that circle and meet this cut. So I'll set up and then I'll turn it on when I'm ready. Now I've set the fence up, so I'm going to cut this block of wood right about here. So I'll make a narrower ramp. So now I want to create some kind of a mechanism to keep the gumball from rolling down and rolling out on the tabletop or floor. So I have set this up to drill a 1/8 inch hole most of the way through this ramp. Notice it stops before it goes all the way through. And then I will glue a little 1/8 inch wooden peg right here to stop the gumball. You could also put a tiny screw there, or you could even put a thumbtack in the end with the lip coming up to stop it. So just be creative on that part. A lot of times what I'll do on this real small diameter doweling is I'll just take a wire cutter and snip it a little long, and then I'll take that piece and sand it off and make it really nice, and it's easier than trying to cut it with a hacksaw or something like that. So go ahead and test it here. Falls down, can easily scoop it out. Mechanism is working good. Here's another little way to customize your machine. When you pull it out, you can notice when I get to this point, my chute lines up with the ramp and the ball falls down. I never need to pull it further than that. So what I can do is spin this around, flip it upside down, and right here I can drill an 1/8 inch hole and put a small peg there that makes a positive stop. So the drawer will never go beyond that point. Also, when I push it in, you can see right there, if you were looking in, the hole lines up perfectly. I can flip it around here and put a tiny peg in there, making a positive stop, so it never has to go beyond that point. Here is a dumb move that I've been guilty of. Don't do this. Don't take and glue your positive stop pegs in while this is outside. First, give it a good finishing coat and polish it up as much as you need to. If you put these in and glue them in, you'll never get this into the slot. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it into the slot, and then you're going to flip it over, and then you can go ahead and insert and glue these pegs in on both sides, and then these will provide that positive stop we're looking for. So I can test it out before anything's glued in, and I can see, yes, indeed, I'm getting, I don't know if you can see that, the holes lining up there, and then when it comes out and drops there, it comes to a stop. So I'm in good shape. So now it's time to put the jar on for the candy, and you have choices. These mason jar lids are nice because you can just pop out the center, take an ice pick and punch holes at 4 different quadrants, set it down there, and then screw the jar on the top. It looks pretty nice because it's a glass mason jar. My problem is I have grandkids and I don't want them to drop this and cut themselves. So what I did instead is I got a plastic mayonnaise jar with a plastic lid. Probably not as durable, but if it falls, they're not going to cut themselves badly. What I would suggest when you go through this, to get the glue off of here, wash as much as you can off, and some of it won't wash off, and then go to WD-40, put a little bit on a cloth, and it'll take the rest of the glue off. When you've done that, you can take this and kind of rotate the bottle so the best part of the bottle is forward, like that, and then you can set down the bottle so that when you tighten it on there, it's going to tighten where the nicest part of the bottle is forward. You'll notice on here what I did is I took an X-Acto knife and I cut a square big enough to go over this hole. And then I've always had trouble when you drill holes like this in plastic, it tends to split. So I just took an ice pick and heated it up with my torch and melted holes. Melted holes tend to not crack, and also they even seem a little bit stronger around the edge. So then I'm going to take some of these large head self-drilling screws and go in each one of these and put it down on there. So you can see I put my screws in, Now all I have left to do is glue in my 3 little pegs for stops, and I'm ready to load it up with candy. This is actually made for gumballs, but I think I might give Skittles a chance first. They may not work as well because they don't roll like a gumball would, so we'll see. Okay, I think it's time to give it a marble test. I noticed they stovepipe a little bit up here in the bottle, and I don't know if there's much you can do about that, but we can see. You can see it's working real well right now.